Dave, thank you for joining me. It's a great event that we've had today. I've spoken to a couple of your colleagues, watched a talk this morning. Very interesting stuff that you guys are bringing into the experience. So to kick off with then, I'm very curious in terms of how we are developing this hybrid environment. So I'm curious from the perspective of when we're bringing in these options for workers, how do you kind of see that evolving from when you're having your hybrid workers and your local workers and really getting that balance between the two? How is the best way to approach that?
Well, we're spending a lot of time with our customers, right? So we sell extensively to pretty much the whole global 2000. And so I'm seeing a different dynamic from a selling point of view, where we used to primarily sell to CIOs. Now we find ourselves in conversations with CEOs and CHROs, heads of HR, and of course the CIOs and facilities team. Everyone's trying to figure out, how do I pull together the people with the spaces we have? How do I reconfigure the spaces? How do I insert the technology to tie it all together? So it's definitely sort of an evolving conversation. There's a lot of proofs of concept going on to say, okay, here's how a huddle room works, here's how a boardroom works. How do I make sure that the technology works with that space? People want to space differently in the room, and so there's just a very different set of expectations than we had pre-COVID.
Very true, very true. And from your perspective, what kind of is exciting you? You're seeing a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline, and you're seeing, obviously, the office that you guys got here. What's kind of getting you excited over the next 12 months?
We do a tremendous amount of work with both Microsoft Teams and with Zoom. And so I think between Teams, Zoom, Google, RingCentral, I think they kind of have the cloud collaboration piece solved. And so I think the biggest challenge now is we're all used to that interface, which is amazing. It puts everyone in the same pane. It sort of democratizes the meeting experience. Well, what happens when you have folks in the room and folks out of the room? And so using what I would call sort of the last mile, our technical gear, and trying to figure out, okay, how do we use AI so that if I have 5 cameras around the room, I'm getting the conversation that's happening. There may be 15 people in the room, but if I'm remote, I don't care about that whole room of 15 people. I care about the 2 that are having a conversation. Yeah. And if one of them is my boss, I maybe care about that person more than the other one. Yeah. And giving that remote person the ability to choose the camera angle they want, to automatically frame up the conversation in an intelligent way, I think there's a tremendous amount we can do to kind of marry that together. So that's number one, kind of in the meeting. Yeah. And then around the meeting, we've got these very smart devices that are sitting there with camera capabilities and audio capabilities and basically sort of IoT sensors. How do you then put intelligence around that? Completely. How do you use this real estate that we have on the walls with digital signage to take care of COVID announcements and scheduling and everything else? So I'm excited about the possibility of what we do with this last mile, that's sort of bringing the promise of cloud collaboration actually into the room.
Me too. I think there's so many possibilities that we have available to us at the moment.
It's exciting.
It is, exactly.
A little bit overwhelming at times, but in the best possible sense of, okay, we could try that and that and that. Well, let's go to the customers. Yeah. Let's prove it out and see what works.
Well, how do you manage that overwhelming nature, or how should an organization manage that overwhelming nature? Is it small steps, bringing things in slowly, or is it an overall plan that should be adopted?
I'm a fan of starting with small steps. Yeah. We have a tremendous amount of research that we've seen both from our use of Poly, but also across our customers. We certainly try to bring that thought leadership into our customer accounts. But financial services is different from healthcare, is different from the government. And so everyone needs to modify that expertise so that it's applicable to their organization. Yeah. And there's massive cultural implications to how you implement it, and how much of your team's going to be in the office doing what sort of work. Creative brainstorming is very different than an accounting review, for example. And so we need to make sure that the applications we have by room are suitable to the use that's actually going on.
Yeah, it's so important at the end of the day just to have that kind of focus going forward. Another element that is interesting, the study was great. I was having a chat with Paul earlier about it with some stats. One thing that obviously jumps out is the death of the 9 to 5, if you will, how that's kind of going away. So how do we kind of balance that workload of having people on and available, but not overstepping that mark of you have to be on all the time, 24/7?
So I have 2 kids, 2 dogs. I travel a lot. I work a lot. I'm a big believer in stepping back and taking a break has to be modeled from the top down. In many parts of the world, we have a policy of unlimited vacation. That sounds wonderful, and then you realize, okay, how do I feel the permission
Yes.
to actually take the time off, right? And many employees have told me it's worse than just tell me I have a 3-week or a 5-week vacation policy.
Yeah.
And so I think it's, we talked about this a little bit in the panel, it's really incumbent on managers to model that work-life balance. And I think they will get a much more productive employee base, team base, if they're able to model the ability to strike that balance. And so whether it is saying Monday morning, no emails, right?
Yeah.
Or Monday morning, no meetings. Whether it is saying, okay, midday on Wednesday, I'm going to step away and have a little bit of thought time to think strategically. And then being very public and being very explicit with that assumption, I think it helps to model to the rest of the team. This is the behavior that I expect. And then hopefully that starts to flow through the organization.
Yes. The filtering down element is very important, very important. So final question for you here, Dave. Obviously, we're talking about moving forward and what's going on in the future. The past 12 to 18 months has been crazy different for everyone, right? There's no predicting it. But in terms of what Poly's doing, what you guys have showcased to us here today, what are you hoping to see over those next 12 months from Poly's perspective and really moving forward?
I'm a huge fan of making Poly experience something magical. So we have, I believe, the world's best gear for the boardroom. But this is our chance to reinvent Poly as a complete experience company. And so how do I make sure that in the meeting, around the meeting, whether it's knowledge workers or maybe eventually we extend beyond knowledge workers, we're kind of defining an experience that makes the future of work transformative. And so I'm preaching to the team, let's think big, right?
Yeah.
The world has changed in a massive, massive way. And the opportunity for Poly is phenomenal. So now we need to get super close to our customers and stay tight to what their needs are. But if we think about that much more holistically, I think there's a radical growth opportunity for Poly ahead of us.
It's an exciting time, and wish you guys the best of luck. And thanks for talking to me today, Dave. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Cheers.